Welcome to the EEE360 video for lab number 24, the buck converter. This is a close-up for the buck converter module. On the left, we have the inputs, our DC inputs. On the right, we have our low voltage DC output. You can see that the input as well as the output are protected by these fuses. In this area, this is the control board circuit. When the switch is to the left position, it's an open loop control. We switch the switch to the right, we're in closed loop control. We'll put this back into open loop control. When we're in open loop control, we can change the duty ratio with this potentiometer. We'll see more of this in the lab. This lab will be using the following components we use in our power supply: the digital amp meter and digital voltmeter, the buck converter module, the oscilloscope, our DC ammeter and DC voltmeter, as well as the three-phase rheostat as a load. And now the TA Ju-Cheng is ready to make our connections. We're going to go from our adjustable DC power supply into the digital ammeter. We're going to connect the output of our digital ammeter. We're going to connect the output of our digital ammeter into the positive input on our buck converter module. We're also going to connect the neutral point of our adjustable DC power supply to the neutral input on our buck converter module. We're going to want to monitor the voltage of our variable DC power supply, so we're going to use this lower voltmeter here, the digital voltmeter. Now that we have the digital voltmeter set such that we can monitor our DC voltage, our input DC voltage. Now we're ready to connect our output. So we're going to connect the output of our module, buck converter module, through through the DC ammeter. We're going to go from our DC ammeter into the rheostat. We're going to connect the other side of our rheostat back to our neutral output on our buck converter. We're going to want to monitor our output voltage using a DC voltmeter. We're also going to need to connect our neutral output to the other side of our voltmeter. Now that this is set, we're going to connect our oscilloscope to measure the voltage V2. And you can see in the laboratory manual, you have a diagram that shows you where the voltage V2 is measured from. First, we're going to connect our ground connection, and now we're going to connect the positive side of our probe to the V2 connection on our buck converter module. And now we have all of our connections properly made. Now we're ready to energize our circuit. We're going to turn on the power supply. We're going to adjust our variable DC voltage until we get to 15 volts. We can look at that monitor there, the lower monitor. We're going to change that till we get to 15 volts. Now that we have our voltage set, let's take a close look at the rest of our measurements. Here's a close-up of our oscilloscope reading. We can see here that our duty ratio is only 16%. We're going to adjust the potentiometer until we get to a 60% duty ratio. Now we have that duty ratio set, we can read that our voltage is 8.0 volts. That's our mean voltage. And here we can see the measurement of our output. We were producing 7 volts on our output, as well as our output current is approximately 4.2 amps. And now, students, it's your chance to do this and other experiments with the buck converter as outlined in your laboratory manual.